Property Patriot, you are cleared hot. Property Patriot, you are cleared hot.
Welcome to the AMI Podcast. I'm your host, Bud Evans. Today we have Nick Prefontaine with us. He's a man of resilience and a testament to the power of determination. Nick's journey is marked by a life-altering event, severe snowboarding accident that left him in a coma. Doctors even doubted his recovery, but Nick defied all the odds. Here are the three takeaways. First, how he overcame adversity. Second, how he used the STEP acronym in his recovery. And last, how he used this event to transition into real estate. Nick's narrative embodies the essence of resilience and offers profound insights in transcending personal tragedy to build a life of success and fulfillment. His story is not just a source of inspiration, but serves as a beacon of hope. Join us today where we provide real estate investors with the tools to achieve generational wealth. This is the Aim High Podcast, show number 53. Good day, high flyers, and welcome to the Aim High Podcast. I'm your host, Bud Evans. Today, I am joined by Nick Prefontaine. If you have never listened to this podcast before, this is the one episode that you really do not want to miss. This is an incredible comeback story. And being from Philadelphia, we all love those incredible comeback stories. Hello, Nick. How are you today?
Hi, Bud. I am excited to be here. I'm actually ecstatic to be here. I was looking forward to this when I saw it on the calendar. So,
yeah, man. When I started talking to Chris, who was on a few weeks ago, and he started to tell me your story, I basically said to him, I have to have Nick on. So I was really looking forward to this. I'm not going to lie to you. So thank you very much for coming on today.
The feelings are mutual, but I'm excited to be here.
If you wouldn't mind, would you give me a brief introduction about who exactly you are?
Sure. My name's Nick Prefontaine, and people always ask me about how I got my start, the origin story, if you will, Bud, and that goes back to a fateful day back in February 5th of 2003. I was at ski club with my friends. We had got ready on the bus so we wouldn't miss any time once we got to the mountain. And then we headed right for the chairlift. And going up the chairlift, we noticed that it was very icy because it had been raining. People were wiping out everywhere. However, it wasn't like our first time on the slopes. We knew what we were doing. So got to the top, buckled into my snowboard, and charged towards the biggest jump in the terrain park with all my speed. And going into the jump, I caught the edge of my snowboard on the snow, and that's really the last thing that I remember. I was told that I landed on my head, wasn't wearing a helmet. Then, really, they wanted to life flight me to the hospital, a helicopter. They couldn't because it was too windy, so they had to send an ambulance in. And out of the 6 paramedics, there was only one who could intubate on the spot, and I needed that to be able to breathe. And luckily for me, he was one of the paramedics that showed up to the mountain that day. And then there really are still several things that I can't explain because of the accident, and now I know it happened for a reason. It's part of the reason why I'm on the other side of this, and I'm able to share my story with other people that are going through trauma or a crisis like this. And then the school had to update my parents and have them meet me at the hospital. And all my parents knew was that I'd been in an accident. But so once they got through to either my mom or my dad was the one that they were able to reach first. And then when he called my mom, he wasn't able to get her live, so he had to leave a message. And as soon as he hung up, he realized that the message would panic her. So he called back and deleted it. Then when they both got to the hospital, they were totally shocked to see how rough of a shape I was in. My head and shoulder, where I made the initial impact right here, were bruised beyond comprehension. The doctors had to drill a hole in my skull to insert what's called a shunt. Without that, the pressure could have gone up and I would have died. And at this point, I was out. But as you can imagine, but it was important. It was very important that my parents, even early on in my recovery, they protected my mindset. So the doctors would come into my room while I was in a coma to share the news and the prognosis on me. And especially early on, it wasn't like it was, oh, he's going to be fine. No problem whatsoever. It was worse and worse, if you can imagine that. And my parents blocked them. They said, no, not in front of him. And to me, this was so amazing because they knew even though I was in a coma that I was still taking in information. So they made the doctors step outside to tell them what was going on with me. And then once out of the room, the doctors told my parents that I probably wouldn't ever walk, talk, or eat on my own again. After roughly, fast forward a little bit, I was in a coma for 3 weeks. It was partially induced. May have mentioned that they had to insert the shunts into my head. It was partially induced because they were afraid that I would wake up and I would panic and I would worry about what was going on and how did I get here, and the swelling would go up and I would have died. So after 3 weeks of being in the coma, I really don't remember a month. I was transported to a rehab hospital in Boston, and that's where I began my journey of having to learn how to walk, talk, and eat again. And they were long days for me. Just to give you an idea, I would get woken up in the morning and I would have to learn how to shower again. My occupational therapist would teach me how to shower again. So it was a really humbling experience. And then all throughout that experience, I unknowingly used an acronym to help me overcome it, get through to the other side, and to be able to thrive with the rest of my life. And that's STEP. Now, STEP is an acronym: support, trust, energy, and persistence. So support, you have to make sure that you have the support of your family and friends around you. This helps free up so much of your mental energy to focus on accomplishing your objective. T is trust. Trust that the next step will make itself available to you once you take your first step. And E is energy. Maintaining your energy allows your body's natural ability to be able to heal itself. Then P is persistence. Once you've taken your first step, keep getting up every day and developing your next step. If you fast forward a little bit, less than 60 days later, after being transported to the rehab hospital in Boston, I ran out of the hospital. And my parents always had it a goal for me when I got in the accident that, okay, you're going to make a full recovery. However, what I heard in the back of my head was, no, you're going to run out of the hospital. So then our common goal became I was going to run out of the hospital, and we would have weekly meetings with all the therapists and doctors. Okay, what are you doing to help accomplish Nick's common goal? And really, it's been reflected to me recently. I got home and then I had to go to another 6 months of outpatient therapy in order to physical, occupational, and speech therapy until I was 100% recovered, along with being tutored all summer long in order to continue on to high school with the rest of my classmates. And it's been reflected to me recently within the past couple of years that, wait a minute, so only 18 months after you were done doing your therapies and learning fully how to walk, talk, and eat again, you were going to some not so great areas of cities and knocking on the doors of distressed sellers that hadn't paid their mortgage in months. And let's face it, this was back in 2006, 2007, years really. And I was like, wow, okay, yeah, I didn't really realize that, because you could probably relate to this. When you're younger, time is compressed. Like a year or 18 months or even 2 years feels like a lifetime. That feels so far away. And then as you get older, you realize a year, 18 months, that's not long at all.
Yeah.
So, yeah, then I was doing that, and I did that throughout high school. I graduated high school, then license, and worked for several years, 6 to 8 years as a successful realtor. And then I started helping my dad more as an investor. And that's really what I'm doing today. I've helped over the years develop a process that we like to bring all of our rent home buyers through in order that when they do get to the end of their agreement, their lease to own agreement, they're going to see that they're able to get qualified for their loan. And we see a lot of our buyers getting financing, which is it's really gratifying. So on a high level, we buy homes creatively, so non-conventional, without signing personally or using big investor down payments. And then we're always selling them through our rent-to-own program. And that's where I come in and working with our buyers to, as I said, bring them through a process that they're able to, at the end of their agreement, go forward and get their own loan. So with that, I will take a step down off my soapbox and let you ask any questions.
Yeah. So Nick, I just have to commend you first off, because, and I just want to recap this because that's a lot to digest. So you went from high school kid, the best time, supposed to be the best time of your life, to a traumatic head and brain injury, to not being able to walk, talk, eat, or clean yourself. And here you are running out of the hospital. How many months later?
Less than 3 months.
Less than 3 months. So right off the bat, that is absolutely incredible. And then you had the wherewithal after that to jump into real estate and start knocking doors. In addition to that, you're working with your father and you're helping people who could not afford to buy a home on their own go out and eventually become homeowners. Is that a pretty good summary?
It's pretty accurate. Yeah. That's a big view, but yes. Yep.
Okay. So I know that my podcast is generally about real estate, but one thing that I do coach is the mindset aspect of this. And I just have to ask you, what goes through your mind on a daily basis that actually gets you up out of bed to go and do this all over again? I know I'll get to the soaring four in a little bit, but I just want to dive into a little bit more exactly what got you up out of that hospital and then immediately start knocking on doors and helping other people. Most people would just internalize.
To me, that's a great question. To me, but the answer is it wasn't immediate. To me, it was like 18 months went by and I was like, it's been forever.
Yeah.
Because I was 14 when I got into my accident. So by the time I finished my rehab, I was right before I was about to turn 15. So to me, it was a lifetime that went by before I started. And I grew up in a family real estate business. So my dad, when I was younger, he probably mentioned some of this, but he was a builder, then an agent, then a real estate agent, then an investor, and kind of toggled between the two, investor and real estate agent, all throughout my life. So right around the time that I was getting my driver's license, I started to read. I wasn't interested in, just because that was all I saw growing up. I was like, I'm good. I don't want to do that. But then I started to get the itch. I started to get interested in investing in real estate. And the first book I read, I remember it was on my dad's bookshelf. It was on the right side, second from the bottom, on the right side of my dad's bookshelf. And I grabbed it. It was Cash Flow Quadrant by Robert Kawasaki. And that was the first book that I read. And it was interesting because that started to give me the itch. And right around that time, I was getting my driver's license. And I said, hey, Dad, would I be able to, at the time, they were looking to have bird dogs go out to properties and outdoors. So I said, this is perfect because I'm getting my real estate license. Although I am not able to drive with anyone in the car, I can still go and knock 50 to 70 doors in a day. So I convinced him that, yeah, that's a good idea. And I didn't get any training other than here's a script. Here's where you go find these people. And oh yeah, here's a leave behind that you leave behind if they're not whole. So no one really taught me on this, but I was like, I want to hit the most amount of doors in a day. So that ended up being the areas of cities, probably not the best to buy real estate in, but I never asked anyone. I just wanted to hit the most amount of doors in a day. And then shortly after starting, my dad sent my cousin Mike and I out to California to shadow the number one guy in the country that was having success with these notice of default doors, people that had missed several payments on their mortgage. And once I saw his approach and how it differed from mine and how nuanced it was and how he was having success, I changed my approach right away. And then I started seeing success.
Great. And then you took that and you progressed. Now I want to go and transition into how you were able to take those pre-foreclosure properties and turn them into almost a charitable event, helping people get into these properties. How did that start?
So they were actually two separate things. So the knocking on doors, that was pre-crash. That was pre-2008. And prior to 2008, my dad was signing personally. I'm sure he mentioned some of this. I'm not sure. We come at it from completely different angles. That's why it's fine to have us on one after the other. But he was signing personally. He was an investor prior to 2008, but he was signing personally on all these loans. I think he had 26 to 30 units at the time. And he was signing personally and getting loans for all these. And then after the crash happened in 2000, I don't want to mince words here, but he didn't do well. He got clobbered by the market at that point because it crashed and people lost 50% of the value of their homes. And that included him and all that he had going on. When he started to get the thoughts again about getting back into real estate, he said there were going to be a few rules if I get involved again in real estate. And one of them is not signing personally, not putting big down payments down. And that's really the way that we started acquiring properties. And then once he got the properties, he needed help handling all the buyers and dealing with all the buyer questions and their inquiries and getting them in there for viewings. And that's where I came in.
Let's take a quick break.
Hey, do you need help running your business? I don't know what I would do without my executive assistant. Get outsourced solutions for every need by visiting Reba Global. Check them out now and get help for just about every aspect of your business today. From marketing through property management and even administrative virtual assistants. Check out Reba Global. The link is in the show notes. Excellent. And then from that point on, the whole lease purchase thing just blossomed?
Yeah, exactly. So I was actually a realtor at the time. I said 6 to 8 years because at the 6-year point after being a realtor, I got my license in March of 2008. I know, great time to be a realtor. He started getting properties back in 2013, 2014, and he asked me if I could help with the marketing of these properties. I was like, no, I got my own thing going on here. I'm fine. I don't need what you have going on. So luckily he asked me a few times, but then I came around to the idea that I could do it right alongside being a realtor. And I did that for, call it a year, maybe a little bit more. And then it just, the marketing, the results of the marketing, all the buyers are calling. Then he couldn't keep up with that. He needed help with that. And over the years, my income as a realtor was like 90%. And I was making like maybe 10% as an investor working with him. And then over the course of a year, my income shifted where January of 2016, it didn't even make sense for me to keep my real estate license. So I let it go, joined him full time. And then over from 2016 to 2019 or 2020, I developed the buyer process. And that's the specific process that we're bringing a buyer through in order for them to get to the end and get their own loan. And that's what I help all of our associates with, not only our properties, but all of our associates with all over the country.
That's excellent, man. Excellent. Now, I got to ask you, because you have been through the gamut from the physical to the mental to helping others. What is one thing you learned as your wealth increased?
one thing I learned would be patience. So very early on, when I was first working hand in hand with these rent home buyers and getting them on the path, because it's really, most of our agreements are 2 years, 24 months that we're able to get these buyers on the path. But after just getting people into homes and not having a very low success rate, I was like, there's gotta be another way. There's gotta be like non-negotiables that we have to put these people through in order to get the best buyer. So not only for us to get the best buyer, but also to increase their success rate in being able to get their own loan. So patience. And I still practice this to this day. Just to give you an example, we have an associate out in California. He was pleading with me. He had been paying the mortgage on this property for 5 or 6 months without a buyer. He had closed on it in December of last year and was paying out of pocket and just couldn't. He was like, let's just rent it. Let's stop the bleeding. And I said to him, no, we got to be patient. You got to be patient. Keep bringing buyers to the process. And maybe a week or two after I said that to him, a buyer surfaced that had $100,000 down payment today and $100,000 down payment in a year. So we would have, if we just had a short-term focus and we weren't patient, we would have risked taking just a renter and having them potentially trash the house, where because we were patient, we get a buyer with $200,000 down payment on off the top of my head, I think it was a $700,000 or $800,000 house. Patience, I would say. Everything grows, but you just have to be patient and bring people through the correct process.
It's like the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The second best time is today.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So,
okay, Nick, thank you very much, man. This has been amazing, but we are about to go into the soaring four. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I wanted to, before we do, I wanted to say I mentioned my dad said if he was going to get back into real estate, there were going to be new rules.
Yeah.
For your listeners, we have our best-selling book, which is The New Rules of Real Estate Investing. That's one of our best-selling books, which I'm a co-author on, and we're giving that away to all your listeners. If they go to wickedsmartbooks.com/aim-high-3, wickedsmartbooks.com/aim-high-3.
Excellent. And I will make sure that is in the show notes. Thank you very much to you and your father for that. I appreciate it. All right. Okay. So the soaring four are the same 4 questions we ask every guest that can help someone who is just starting out achieve new heights. Question number 1 is, what do you use to keep yourself motivated?
What do I use to keep myself motivated? I think it's ever since my accident, and really, I've asked people if I was if I had this prior to my accident, and I've got kind of mixed answers, but every day it's you get up, you just deal with what's in front of you, and you take your next step.
Mm-hmm.
So every day it's just continuing to take my next step, whatever that ends up being, whatever that is.
And we go back to that acronym that right, take that step.
And so you remind me, so I don't forget, I can give your listeners a way that they can access my free ebook called Step, which goes into detail on each one of those letters. I just covered like a 10,000 foot view, but.
Excellent. All right. What is one thing? And man, I got to tell you this question, I'm about to say it and it still feels funny coming out of my mouth. What is one thing that changed your mindset? Other than having a major accident where you were told that you would never walk or talk again. Other than that.
No, I'm glad you asked it, because it's not what you think. So when I got into my snowboarding accident, and that was when I was 14 years old. So I literally just got up and just dealt with it every day. I did the best I could every day. I got up and did the best I could and I recovered. It was like, to me, it was no big deal. To me, it was normal. However, or let me say, and then I had to, the doctors couldn't really pinpoint it, bud, but I would say it's from that. I developed a voice issue in 2012. And I was looking everywhere. I couldn't figure it out. And I was going to all these specialists and everything. Then I ended up at a specialist office in Boston in August of 2013. And that's where I started to get Botox treatments in conjunction with their highly specialized voice therapy. And going through that experience, I had to get Botox treatments for 7 years. 7 years, along with getting specialized voice therapy from their, not just speech therapists, but like higher level, and getting exercises from them and going through that. So that experience really, really taught me more about myself. And really, once I got through that, my last treatment was in February of 2020, prior to the world shutting down.
Mhm.
Once I got that last treatment and then never had to go back for another treatment, I really said to myself, there's nothing that I can't do. Just that was a highly motivating thing for me after I got through with that. It was really something that I dealt with over the course of 8 or 9 years.
That's amazing. Dude, you're an inspiration, honestly. What is one thing that you use to keep you on track?
One thing I used to keep me on track, since I would say since I developed and I had my mentor, Trisha Brooke, she helped me she was one that reflected back to me and helped me develop this step system. I see the world through the step system. Like everything that I see and everything I'm doing with, and really you can use it not only for just an injury, but anything, a new business venture, new anything, you can see the world through that. So really, since she helped me develop that back last year, about a year and a half ago, we worked on that together and she helped me develop that. So I think that's really, since I spent the work and the dialogue going back and forth with her, but she asked me, she goes, okay, you have a great story. Okay, how'd you do it? And I said, I don't know. I just got up and did it. And she said, no, keep going like further. Like, how, and she kept asking me, and it was so frustrating to go through that process with her. But I'm so glad we did, because out of that, I was able to develop the step system. And that was a system that we created and I unknowingly used to not only make a full recovery, but run out of the hospital.
Excellent. And then the last question is, what is one thing you would change if you had to start all over?
Again, you and probably everyone else probably thinks that you have an answer that know what I'm going to say, but it's actually a little different. I would not change my accent, because it was something that was given to me because source, creator, God, whatever you call it, knew that I could handle it and I could help other people by doing that. So I wouldn't change that. What I would change, or what I would do differently, is if I could tap myself on the shoulder when I was anywhere from 16 to 19, 16 or 20, and just say, just slow down. Just make sure you're going through the proper step. You're not skipping any steps, and make sure you're doing everything correctly. You're going to get there. You're going to succeed, but just make sure you're doing everything correctly. So nowadays, I see people in our community, young, my God, I'm dating myself, but I see young kids like in their teens, like still in high school or just graduating. And I pull them aside and I say, if there's one thing that I could tell you is just slow down. You're going to get there. You just have to go slow. Don't skip any steps. Make sure you're doing everything the right way, because you can't rewind now when you're 5 years from 5 or 10 years from now. Make sure you're doing everything correctly. You're miles ahead of everyone.
Awesome, man. Nick, if somebody wanted to reach out to you, how would they do that?
I'll give them a couple things to do. So if you go to nickprefontaine.com/step, they can download the step system for free today. Like I said, I just gave a 10,000 foot view. And then if they were interested, any of your listeners were interested in any little bit of what I had to say with real estate and buying homes without signing personally and without using big investor down payments or anything like that, they can go to our website, smartrealestatecoach.com. And if they scroll down a little bit, they can get registered for a master's class. And at the end of that master, there's a ton of value in there, but at the end of that master's class, if they are interested in any way in what we have to say and how we buy and sell on terms, and we talk about the trademark 3 payday system, they'll be able to take action, take their next step at the end of that. It's not a fit for everyone, not promising that, but if it's a fit for them, they'll be able to take their next step.
Excellent. Nick, again, you are a true inspiration, and I really do appreciate your time today.
Thanks for having me, bud. It was a lot of fun.
It's an absolute pleasure, man. Thanks for being a part of the Aim High community. Your support drives us to create valuable content, and we can't wait to see your success stories in real estate investing. Till next time, aim high, never stop learning. Bud Evans, signing off. We'll see you soon.